Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining this this webinar for PRAESENSA. Today we will be talking about integration of the PRAESENSA system into other systems through the open interface. Yeah, myself, my name is Maarten Winks. I'm a marketing manager for the EMEA region of the public address portfolio. And today, the biggest part of the presentation will be done by Anton Thiele, who is the application design engineer and has a lot of experience with our open interface. So the objective today is to give you more insights on what the open interface for PRAESENSA actually is, what we can do with it, yeah, what type of properties it actually features and how you can use it. We will go first through some theoretical slides, and then there will also be a small demonstration from Anton. So maybe first a bit smaller introduction, more on the commercial side. So what can the open interface actually be used for? So it is it's a document which describes on how you can interface with our PRAESENSA system, and what you can use it for is basically to interface a PRAESENSA system with, for instance, another third-party system. So who is using this interface? Very often it is system integrators which need to offer an integrated solution towards a customer, and they are using the open interface description to control our PA system and make it part of their integrated solution. Next to that, we also have integration partners in the IPP program. So those are vendors which are offering a solution that needs an interface to our PA system. As an example, you see here Citig, Aviavox, and Simpleway. So they are often involved in transportation projects like railway or airports, and they, for instance, have a software platform that is accessing traveler or passenger data, and they are making announcements based on that data through our PA system. So they link to various systems, of which the PA system is one. Next to that, we are using it ourselves as well. So if you take, for instance, our APAS and APAL application, so which is a device which allows you to make announcements from a tablet or play background music. This also controls the PA system using our open interface. Yeah. So what's the some of the USPs which we definitely like to bring forward to system integrators as also architects and consultants? So feedback that we get from the market, it's that it's one of the best documented open interfaces on the market available. So we get a lot of feedback that there are many opportunities of controlling the system, getting feedback from the system, and it's described in a very nice manner, so that creating such an interface by an engineer is really feasible to do. Yeah, if you look at the last bullet, so one of the interesting topics is that the data traffic actually floating through the interface is encrypted. So this is something which is unique on the market. And as you read in the last bullet, it is free of charge to download. So just go to the Bosch webpage and download the document, and you can start building your own interface. So that was a bit on the commercial side. What can you use it for? Where is it applied? And now let me hand over to Anton, who will guide you through a bit more details of the open interface. Anton, please go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Maarten. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for this introduction. Let's go a little bit more into the technical features of this open interface. So as Maarten already indicated, it is used for third-party integration, and that means that any third-party user could create such a control interface using the PRAESENSA Open Interface. All is through TCP/IP. You could also think about third-party integration through contacts, but of course that's limited. This provides more or less full control of your PRAESENSA system. Besides that, you have then the audio interface also through IP, TCP/IP, which is then Dante in this case, to be able to get audio into the system or from the system. Yeah. So what can you do to control? What can you control in PRAESENSA? Well, it's a lot. So what you can do is to create and start live speeches from a call station. You could broadcast a pre-recorded message. You could broadcast emergency calls, distribute background music. So you could do all the management of the background music, etc. So all the calls which you can normally control through contacts or through the call station from PRAESENSA, you can also manage through this open interface. The diagnostics is done also there by subscriptions to events, for example, that you can get all the general events of all the call events, all the fault events from your system. So you can really subscribe to the particular objects in the PRAESENSA system if you need to have diagnostics information about this. Yeah. So there are some security features, which is what Marta also indicated, which are pretty unique in the market. But they, for example, are that you can log in with user-only credentials. That's something which you can do. That you can create your users and that they cannot make any modifications. So they are only, so that's also security. If you have these credentials, that no one else can use these credentials to make modifications in the system. You can have the ability to set up a secure connection, a TLS connection. So that's fully encrypted. There can be a two-way connection supervision. So that means that PRAESENSA sends out heartbeats to check if the connection to the third-party system is still present. And the third-party system can send keep alive messages to PRAESENSA to assure that the connection is still present. So as you, from both sides, you can check and supervise if your connection to between PRAESENSA and your third-party system is okay. And you could then generate errors in case you lose that connection. Yeah, so you can have the ability to allow PRAESENSA to only connect to configured system clients. So that also gives you a limitation. Not everyone can just connect to the PRAESENSA system, only the clients you configure, which are allowed to connect. So that's also a security feature which can help to make your access to the PRAESENSA system more secure. Here I have a picture of all type of devices which connect to the PRAESENSA system. As you can see, all the external connections are through the system controller. Besides that, you have the Dante audio in-out from the system controller. Also, the communication is through the system controller to the external world. And then what we do inside the PRAESENSA system itself, between the call stations and the amplifiers, there we have our own Omnio platform with the open control architecture to have a really secured and encrypted communication platform. But that's more low level communication interface. What you see here is the external communication. And for example, when you look here at the left side, our logging server, which is supplied together with the PRAESENSA system, also uses the open interface. So that also already gives you an idea about what diagnostics events you also could obtain in your own customized solution. If you don't like the logging server or you want to have it just in another way presented, you could create something by your own. Yeah. So logging clients from we have our logging viewer. This logging viewer will then again via this port 19451 connect to the logging server, and that logging server will then connect via this port 9403 encrypted to the open interface of PRAESENSA. Yeah, so that's one thing what can be done here. Yeah, APAS was already explained. It's also using it. Yeah, and so it means that it also gives you an idea about the capabilities. If you are familiar with our logging server and logging viewer, then you know all the diagnostics information you could obtain from the PRAESENSA system without using these applications. If you want to create it or present it in another type of format, you could use the open interface to subscribe to these events and to get them. Yeah, a third-party application could then also, via open interface, connect in an unencrypted or encrypted way. Yeah, if you want to have it unencrypted, then on port 9401 and else on 503, and then maybe you can have a firewall in between to just block the 9401 if you don't want to have that anyone accessed. Yeah, so these are the ways to communicate, always through the system controller. Yeah, so not to the other components. This is really our interface to the PRAESENSA system. And we have our own protocol to communicate with the devices itself, so with the amplifiers and there and the call stations. That's what we do within our own architecture. Yeah. Let's go to the next one. Ability to allow PRAESENSA to only connect to configured system clients. I already briefly indicated this. So that in the system settings, there's a checkbox that you can say that you do that. So that you allow access by, so you have to uncheck it to that you only have configured system clients in your system, and you need to add them, that client, in the system composition of PRAESENSA. So your third-party management system or control system can be added as a system client to the system composition. And in that case, it can also then send out heartbeats to control and check if your system is still available or not. Yeah, and gives an error message in case it is not. So it's a fully monitored in that case. Let's go to the next step. Yeah, we have two types of open interfaces. There is a native communication interface, and there is a high-level communication interface, which is sometimes also used in the API, name the API. But the native communication interface is then a message-based platform. So it's platform independent. And message-based messages, which means it has a kind of C-style structure. And so it has a message type, it has a length, and you have the data. And in this way, you could, yeah, from any type of even already a small mini computer, you could do some control with it. So that's really the low-level type of interfacing. Native communication interface. When you then look at the high-level communication interface, that's where the open interface .NET library is can be used, and that can be helpful, that you do not have to really on message level need to program, but there you can use this library to quickly build up your code. Yeah, so that's in Visual Studio, which means it's also Microsoft limited here, but you have both options. So the native communication interface, yeah, so what can it do? Besides, of course, also but you have the diagnostic event states, new, acknowledged, resolved, reset. You can have diagnostic event groups with calls, general or fault event groups, and the diagnostic event types. So you have a call end, you have a start, you have a unit connect, etc. So these type of diagnostics you can obtain from it. Then you have message types, login, stop call, set BGM volume, etc. That are the message types. And then you have event originator message types, which are the unit, the control input, the audio input, etc. So that are event originators. And then you have error codes, the must logging first or string too long. These kind of error codes come back. Yeah, and so that's the native interface. I later on can show you briefly a little bit on the manual. And then the part 2 of the open interface programming instructions will show you the library. So that's then how this open interface library should be used, how to catch errors. So this is then again this Visual Studio open interface library. Methods and event explanation is therein, and the enumeration file type definitions. Yeah, and methods like connect and create a call and start that created call and stop it. That are the methods which can be used to quickly implement an interface there. Then you have events as well here, like connection broken, call state changed, BGM routing changed, etc. So there are a lot of events which could happen and where you can subscribe to. Yeah. Diag event classes and corresponding properties. So you have the call events, fault events, and general events. So if for ones of you who know the logging server, there you know also that the call events, fault events, and general events are segregated in 3 different tables. So and here you can see them also. You could also obtain them through these classes. Yeah. And then you have the event originator, so the audio input or the control input, which where the call is coming from, yeah, or initiated by. And then, last but not least, there is a demo code available in in the manual, which explains you briefly on how to set up the code. Regarding the tools, yeah, you have then this open interface library, so the DLL that's distributed together with the firmware. So you always, when you download the latest firmware and data sheets, etc., then also this library is shipped with it, and you can install that one. So it can be included in Visual Studio, and it's intended to be downwards compatible. So it means that that's to avoid then that you need to rewrite code after firmware update. That always the older commands, if new will come, they still are able to be used. Yeah, for the ones who are really looking into the native communication interface, there is a Wireshark dissector available. It's not published, but if you need it, please contact through your channel us to provide you this. So it could help in analyzing the commands which go over the network. Yeah, so that's something where this sector could help to better understand the communication. And then this open interface manual. So that has that detailed description, what I just explained in the previous slides. And there is some example code to in this manual, which you then could implement by yourself. We are not publishing our own example code. It's on the wish list. So I also expect this question from you to come. Unfortunately, we do not have direct example code, and yeah, it's also some security aspects, etc. But yeah, it's something which is on the wish list, but at the moment not available. But we have the example code mentioned in the manual, which can help you to create this. Yeah, so this is briefly what I would like to explain you about the open interface. And so when I now go to the call center, so this is a demo application which I'm now showing you. Yeah, you can also see still mentioning here NCO. It is a system. It is a PRAESENSA system controller, but it's just for internal use. So we can also not share this, but I just want to show you here what you can do with it. And that means here I have logged into this system controller, and I could disconnect, and I could reconnect again. So you see there's some stage changes logged here, and and then you can create a call. So when I would go to here, you see the call definition. You can see, for example, the priority here, 32. I can make it 35, for example. I go to route to particular zones. So what this application also does, it obtains, you can abstract the zone information from the system controller. So you can, so all the zones which are configured are here shown. And so you do not need to configure that in your own application. You can just obtain them, and that also avoids that you make any configuration mismatches. Also for the start chimes, it's the same. You can, if you have here, for example, the two-tone chime and a message which you want to play out, which you have configured already in the system, you could select that here and then later on page that one. So you have your end chime. So I think this for the ones who have configured already with PRAESENSA, this call definition looks familiar, I guess. So these are all the parameters which you can enter to create a call. So you can also send a message, including these parameters, to make your announcements. You can set the attenuation for the chimes or for the messages, and if it's a live speech, you can also indicate the audio input. Yeah. Yeah, and then you could create a call. So I can create a call first. So I will do that now. Yeah, now you can see here, I'm just jumping now back to the first. So you can see now the call is created with the call ID 213. So, and now you need to start that call ID. That's also the principle how calling works. And so you first create a call, you get an ID, and then that ID you can start. Yeah. Let me also show the logging server here, logging viewer. So I have here a logging viewer, and I have here the, yeah. So in case I now start this call, you can also see here now what happens. So you have a priority 35. I changed the priority to 35, and I'm playing that message close. So that's a couple of seconds. So you see now it's ended, and it stopped. So you can immediately then also see here the call start and when it ended. So it was a call of about 10 seconds, and yeah, and that's all more or less. Yeah, so that's one of the things you can do, starting and creating calls. Yeah. When you look at the command, so this create call, this is such kind of command which you see here, where all these parameters are after each other sent to the system controller and via the open interface, and will then be executed in the same way as I just like I just demonstrated. Yeah, you can also do something with music. I have here some music channels, so it's also showing already the music channels which are configured in PRAESENSA, and you can then set the music to a particular zone. So you could set it, for example, again to that zone 1, and now you can see here also an plus zone 1 information here on this on the logging. Yeah. So yeah. That's more or less, I think, the brief indication. So also what we have, did not explain that yet. Yeah, you can acknowledge and reset emergency. You could acknowledge and reset faults. And you also, what you see here are virtual control inputs. And in this example, we have one VC2 configured. And this control input can be configured in PRAESENSA to trigger calls. So the nice thing of it is that it's like a contact. It behaves like a control input. Yeah. So when you start that call as trigger, then that will trigger then an event in the so you can see here some type of call now, and you can again stop that call. Yeah. So that will trigger an action in PRAESENSA, which you have configured in PRAESENSA. So that's something which helps you in not sending all, you do not need to send all these parameters, but you can just trigger a contact, and in PRAESENSA, you have then configured what should be done for that virtual control input. So that's also a way to, in an easy, to quickly activate and deactivate calls, and just by activating these virtual triggers. So yeah, when you look at the manual itself, I think that's the first step. When someone wants to start with it, yeah, you should have programming experience, so you need to understand how it works to do programming. But if you are familiar with it, then go through this document. And important to understand is that the first part is this protocol, so that's the native interface, as I explained in the beginning of this webinar. And so it's explaining all the different message types. I mentioned some examples, what can be done with it. And you have a part 2, which is the library. So that's then this DLL library description on how to program it more on a higher level. So it's in detail explained all the different methods and what you can do, what type of events, what kind of actions you can do, and they are really in detailed. For example, increment BGM volume here, you can add that the parameter here, and with that, in that way you could increase the volume with the 3 dB. So that's just an example of what type of events you can do with it. Yeah, and then on the far end of this document, you can see here the demo code, the examples. It's a simple C#.NET application, and that's explaining how you should set up your code to create such interface. Yeah, so that's the starting point. So if someone would like to experiment and learn on an open interface, yeah, this would be the starting point to understand this. And then maybe even the dissector, which I explained, could help also in understanding what now really happens if I create such call, and what on a low level is going to take place. But that's already a step further. So first of all, the big Bible is here, this document, and then after that, yeah, it for most of the integrators can work through it and create an application with this. So yeah, this is briefly what I try to explain and about Open Interface. So I think it's now time for questions, if you have.
Okay, thank you, Anton, for this. There are indeed a few questions. So one of the questions is whether the command send is using to PRAESENSA is using HTTP command, or whether it should be within the C# interface application.
It should be into the C# application.
Yeah. Okay. I think that was also what you showed in the sample code. Huh? Okay. Have you tested the integration with Stantophone or any other intercom system with BIS or with BVMS?
I know with BVMS there have been some tests done. So there, so if there's some information about that way for interfacing PRAESENSA with the BVMS. So there are some. For the others, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As far as I know, for BIS, nothing official yet, and for the intercom system, I am also not aware. Yeah. Okay. Is there the possibility to integrate with BugNet to Canada using an open interface?
Yeah, as soon as we plan to have a PRAESENSA OpenC server. As soon as that would be available, then you can link the OpenC of PRAESENSA to other OpenC servers via BIS, to, for example, BACnet, or so that could be one of the approaches, or when we have a gateway which is more advanced already, also to have this. So it is possible. At the moment, not yet available, but you could create it, because Open Interface can just get all the diagnostic events. So an interface could be created, and there are different ways. You could have a direct interface, but that's then more a dedicated development. Or you say, yeah, when this OPC server is available, then I do a connection through BIS, and then I can create, and then I have a BACnet OPC server, and I have this PRAESENSA OPC server, and I somehow within BIS I link them together. That's also what we have done in other projects. So yeah, there are many different ways.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any known cases of integration with control systems such as AMX or Crestron?
Yeah, for PRAESENSA I don't know yet. For Presidio I know, because Presidio, the predecessor of PRAESENSA, has a similar like of interface. So, and there I know they have built such kind of these interfaces exist. For PRAESENSA I don't know yet. So, but yeah, we can check.
Then another one. PRAESENSA only supports 8 Dante outputs. How can I take more than 8 outputs?
Yeah, it has only 8 Dante out, and at this moment that's the maximum. In the at the moment that we are also going to support multi-controller, then you can still have also on other controllers again 8 outputs if you add then another system controller to it. But that's at the moment the limit. That doesn't mean that it is a limitation of the technology, because the technology can go far beyond. So it's now just that we at the moment only have these 8 channels out on the system controller. But
Yeah. Is there
yeah,
an option to
it's
use other Omnio products such as the Dynacode equipment to get more analog outputs?
no, because the fact is that the current we have everything encrypted inside the PRAESENSA system, so that means that you cannot just get the audio out them. So it's more on the decryptor side, which is not implemented in other type of applications. But it's on the wish list, and to have indeed Dynacode or an like the gateway ways of getting standard Dante out of the PRAESENSA system. But at the moment it's limited to 8.
Okay. Then the OPC, is that going to be a UA or is it going to be a AEDE server?
It's a unified architecture, OPC.
So
So
here, UA.
that's the latest standard.
Okay. Then the demo that you have just shown, using the example code and the open interface manual, is that done using a different code? I don't understand the question. Was the
It's a slightly different code. So it's not because maybe you have seen the graphical user interface of the on the sample code and the code which I showed. Yes, it's slightly different. I just wanted to show a little bit more interaction on like the create call and what you then do with that. So that's the reason why I have some other sample code shown here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, then there is a question on the slides, whether you get them for downloading. Yes, you do. So after the webinar is done, in a few days, you will get a link to the recording as also the slides, and then you can download all the materials for reviewing afterwards. Okay, Anton, I think that was the last question. Not
Okay.
sure if anything still pops in. If not, I would like to thank you for your participation and look forward for your participation in the future webinars where we will talk about other topics as well. And I wish you all a very pleasant day and thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your attention.